Hello YouTube, welcome back to part 16 of the 1951 Ford F-1 truck series. Where are we now? Well, I've got clamps in. See if you can see here, you can see some clamps over there on the fuel line. You'll see one as we go down. Put the rest of those in hopefully tomorrow and get the fuel line all secured. Been doing kind of an inventory. I need to really figure out where some of this stuff is going to go. It's getting kind of crazy. Let me tell you about the fuel clamps first. I bought these fuel clamps, and they come with little screws in them, kind of look like a dog bone on the end. And my intent was to put them against the frame. Then I realized when I got them that, well, they basically are made to screw together, not to anything. So just chucked them up in the vise, drilled a hole through, and we're using blind nuts and just mounting them onto the inside of the frame rail, and they're working fine. Trying to put the blind nuts where you can't really see them on the support for the front. That one's within the confines of the front support for the IRS subframe, so you can't see that from the outside, and we're going to put more down that way. We'll put them behind the running board brackets, so again, you just don't have to look at them. It won't be very noticeable. You have to look for them to find them. Anyway, so basically fuel system's 10 minutes from being fully complete, and that's a good thing. Then we started looking at the air system. We got the air system in. I ended up buying a airlift suspension kit. It's got a Viair 444C air compressor, which right now is just sitting down there. Hopefully you can see it. And a 4-gallon aluminum tank, a controller, hoses, all those goodies. So I've got the controller right here. So this is the control system, and this where all your hoses mount to and all those goodies. So this is going to mount up under here, so it'll be well out of the way, protected reasonably, and easy to deal with. So the air compressor, I just showed you where it was on the rear of the IRS subframe. The only thing I don't like about it there is it can be very difficult to maintain, and I'm a little worried about that, but it's an amazing place otherwise. They tend to be loud. Further away they are, the better from the driver, the cab area. I think it'll also be somewhat less of a shake to the truck. You won't feel as much vibration because the IRS subframe is bushed against the frame, so there's a little bit of a cushioning effect there. And so I think I like where it is. The only challenge with where it is the fact that with the bed on across there, you won't be able to get to it. Short of taking the bed off or dropping the fuel tank. I think it's going to be pretty easy to drop the fuel tank, to be honest with you. So I think what I'm going to do is pretty well leave it where it is, and yeah, let it ride. I think it'll be fine. Then we've got a 3-gallon air tank. So where do we put the air tank? And let me show you where I think we're going to put it. Hang on just a second. Well, there's where I think we're going to put the air tank. This is the cab. Sorry about all the mess. This is a bunch of insulation and floor pan and the like that we're tearing out of here, but yeah, I think that's where it's going to ride. It was concerned at first about interfering with the seats, but what I realized, if you can tell, it's hard to tell, if you've got your seat with any kind of a lean angle on it, the back end of the seat's not going to be all the way up against the air tank. So what I'm thinking about doing is putting the air tank there and possibly building a box. It'll come up and it'll come in at an angle to, say, this cross brace right here. And then we'll use that also for placement of some stereo speakers. So I think that's where we're going to go. I think we're going to put the air tank there in the cab. It just has air coming in and going out. Shouldn't be ridiculously loud. Might hear a little bit of a noise as the air moves in and out of the tank down the lines, but I don't think it'll be problematic at all. I was originally considering putting it out here on the frame. And if you look where that floor jack is down there, I was looking at putting it right along the frame rail right there. And I just kind of opted out of it. It's got a few issues. One, you're going to have that rather lengthy tank there, and then you'll have the drive shaft coming from here going up, and it won't leave much, if any, room for our exhaust pipe. It's going to get really, really crowded real quick. And so I just decided to find somewhere else. Thought about it for a while. Didn't want to put it in the cab at first. I didn't want it to limit seat placement. But then as I looked in the cab, I realized that, like I said, with much of any lean back on the seat, you're going to be away from the rear of the cab at the bottom of the seat anyway. So I think we're good. I'm happy with that solution now. Really tore over that for a little while. Seems to be the biggest thing here is figuring out what goes where. Not being stock or even anything close to stock rebuild. It's all up to you, and there's a good and a bad to have it all up to you. And also went to an bit of an inventory of lines and access to the rear of the truck. Again, this is all things we're trying to finish up to be able to say that we're pretty much done with the back of the truck. So here's how it's going to go. This fuel pump wiring will be relocated. That's only temporary at this point. But on this side, we're going to have you'll have the fuel lines that are there now. You'll also have a brake line no, we won't, never mind, cancel that. So a fuel line's going down this side. On this side, and an air line, that's what it was. We'll have air lines coming from the pump, going up to the tank. And we'll have an air line coming from the tank, back to, again, down this side, back to that valve control block that'll be under there. And then there'll be a line that comes out this way, comes along here, and will jump onto this airbag. And that's going to be on this side. On this side, we've got was it 5/16 or no, it's not that. 3/16 brake line that'll come to the back, and it'll come to the back and to the center of this subframe, the IRS subframe, and it'll split off and come to each side, the brakes on each side. It'll have a T in the middle. And then also the wiring harness to the rear will come this way. So our fuel pump wire, our wire for the compressor, the control wires for the valve, the airbag valve system, the rear brake running lights, blinkers, that will all run down a wiring harness that'll run on the inside of the frame this way, and come back and then split off to everywhere it needs to go. And then finally there will be the emergency brake cable. The emergency brake cable is right there. It'll run back up that side of the frame and go that way. So then the exhaust will come down and split and be just underneath the cross member right here, the IRS cross member. So that's how the rear lines are going to run. Alright, let's get back to this truck. It's been a break. It's been a break for a few reasons. One, I had to do some travel for work, and that's always consuming for a time. And the other one is I've been suffering from a little bit of analysis paralysis, which is to say I've been having trouble making some decisions and end up delaying because I'm challenged to make the decisions. And so what I realize now is that just make your best decision. They're generally reversible. And like I say, unless you're chopping a frame in half or something, you can change your mind. It's not that big a deal. So where are we? We got the drive shaft installed. You can see it there. And tell you the tale on that one. I had two drive shafts. One that came out of this original 97 Thunderbird, and then I had one that I got in a trade amongst a bunch of other equipment I needed, particularly the transmission for this truck. And part of the deal was it was a Power Stroke drive shaft, 3-inch drive shaft in that trade. And so I took it and stored it, and whenever I was ready to do the drive shaft for this thing, I found out that it was perfect. It was within half an inch of the length I needed based on measurement. So we went with it, and I'll show you the transmission yoke, which shows the gap on the drive shaft. It's a little larger than you would prefer, but it's quite reasonable. We'll climb on the truck in a minute and show you. Another thing that's happened, if you'll notice, there's running board brackets. I went ahead and redid all 6 of the running board brackets. The running board brackets could be done any time. If you go back to, I think it was part 5, we talk about the running board brackets when I took them off the frame originally, and there was a number of them that needed some weld repairs. So did those weld repairs, covered them 415. Right now there's a couple of them mounted on. There's one laying under the truck. I actually just took it off to do some of the work we've been doing. So got the running board brackets complete, ready to go back on, and some of them actually back on. But I did that so that I could worry about this routing on the e-brake cable. I think I'd said before I was going to hold on the e-brake cable until the cab was off. I changed my mind, because you need the cab on really to make good sense of this. So if you'll notice now, the e-brake cable originates right back here. This is called the intermediate cable. It goes from this doubler where it combines the two sides, goes from here up toward the front of the truck. And I'm going to climb under the truck and then show you where it goes from there. After I show you I'll show you that, and then I'll show you the actual e-brake handle. Alright, so here's the terminal point for the intermediate cable. That's to the rear of the truck, that's to the front of the truck, and built a bracket that mounts on here where the running board bracket goes. And again, that just terminates the intermediate cable. There is a body mount, cab mount right there that will be clear of that bracket and of that cable. So then the cable runs, apologize for all the movements here, but cable runs along the side of the frame under the cab, and then we had to poke some holes here through this middle body mount, middle cab mount, and run the cable through there. Let me slide down here a little bit. This is under the passenger side, driver's side of the truck, and then here is the point where the front cable hooks to the intermediate cable, and then it comes up, and this is our second bracket, and here forward cable terminates in this bracket, and then it has an adjustment capacity here so that we can tighten the cable. Right now we've only got one bolt, because with the cab on here it's hard to get alignment for that second bolt. So we'll put that second bolt, it goes into a slot. There's a slot here. We'll put that on once we can clearance the cab, get it out of the way, and then I'll show you where this bracket runs to up in the cab. Alright, so up in the cab, put a hole in the floorboard here. You can see the cable coming up. Cable comes up, and we've shown the connection. There's a cable to the parking brake handle. So that's set, and that's not set. So we've got the system working. think it's working well. I'm happy with it for sure. We may have to do a little bit more adjusting and the like, but I think overall those two terminal brackets were really the only things we had to fabricate. The terminal bracket for the intermediate cable and the terminal bracket for the forward cable. And well, then we also had to fabricate the way it connects up under there a little bit, but that was not a big deal at all. So we now have a working parking brake system using the 1997 Ford Thunderbird parking brake system and the 1951 e-brake handle. So let me show you the clearance on the drive shaft. Well, let's get on to the drive shaft conversation. As I said, this is a power stroke drive shaft. I don't know exactly what it came out of. It's nice, heavy duty drive shaft. Plenty enough for the amount of torque and the power that this truck is going to generate. And I was going to take it in and get it shortened when I determined that it was already too short. Well, too short may not be the right word. It was already short enough. Maybe too short, depending on who you ask. But what I did was I measured it, and it came out about a half an inch shy. Generally speaking, hopefully you can see this, maybe tight in here, but this is about 1.5 inches. What we generally want here is about 1 inch between this rear seal and the end of the yoke. What we've got is about 1.5 inches. So that still gives us a couple of inches engagement of splines on the yoke. So for now at least we're going for this. We had to get these I call them converting U-joints. Basically there's two different size lugs on these U-joints, one to accommodate this and one to accommodate the original shaft. It's the same U-joint on the other end. I think they call them converting U-joints. And so yeah, it works. It's in here. And like I said, we've got about 1.5 inches of clearance here. We would prefer about 1 inch, but I think we're still plenty good. I checked with some local folks who do drive shafts, and they were quite okay. They said they thought it would be quite fine to have this 1.5 inches versus 1 inch. And again, whenever I installed this test fitting, I determined that there's still several inches. I think it was about 2.5 inches of engagement on this yoke. This yoke's quite long, and once it engages the output shaft here on the transmission, it still had plenty of clearance. So drive shaft's done, e-brake cable system's done. Now it's time for the air management system, and we're going to get that going in. As is my habit, I try to look ahead past the system I'm working on, and so the systems I'm now looking toward are the interior and the steering system. Main reason I'm looking at the interior is because I got a chance to buy an interior out of an older truck. I'll show you that right now. So here's the interior we're going to use. Let me move around here a little bit. This seat, and I have a matching seat for the passenger side, is out of a 2001 Dodge Dakota Sport. It's basically, it had been T-boned. Didn't damage the seat on the driver's side. Did damage the seat belt, I'm afraid, but the seat itself was fine. So we've got the two front seats. We also have the console, which we're not going to use. We're going to build a custom console because of the fact that it was an automatic. This is a manual, and it just wouldn't fit in here very well. Anyway, I have it, but it just doesn't fit in here very well. So here's one of the seats. You'll notice it's sitting on some bricks. We're going to build basically a mounting rack that goes across. I don't know, either individual mounts or maybe a single mount going across to mount the seats to that'll bolt to the floor. And then we're also mocked up the seat belts, which you can see down here. We've got the shoulder strap harness part there clipped on. We're going to do some modifying up here to beef up this metal. And we've got the terminal in there clipped to the side, and then there's the actual spool for the seat belt. And they work good. Click into the other side of the seat there, and So yeah, we're happy with that solution. I'm going to put the one that was in the driver's side. This actually is a rear seat belt out of the rear of the truck, what I call the jump seats. And it's long enough, no problem. It engages, the buckle engages with the clips in the seat. We're happy there. But I believe the driver's side, well, it wasn't the driver's side, the passenger side front, I believe that's a little bit of a longer spool of strapping. So we're probably going to put that here on the driver's side, and then we'll put this one that was in the rear over on the passenger's side. So then one other thing that we're doing, like I said, getting ahead to the next system, I went ahead and started ordering steering parts as I prepared to put in the air system, and I just couldn't stand it. I had to mock up the driver's column, steering column, and the steering wheel. Got lots of work to do here. Just got it on a drop. It's an I did it column. So I did it column drop, and it's loosely mounted here, so hardly in there. It's just a mock-up right now. It's about the length that's going to go through the floor. We're going to have to make that plate. That plate's long since missing, and so we'll have to mock up that, make one of those plates to go around the pedals and the steering column. I've also got a steering column bearing to go on that plate, so the steering column will be held down there. And then I've got the double D shafts and the U-joints and all those goodies. We are going to have to use a support bearing, so we're going to have to come out of the end of this steering column, go to the side to a bearing, and then come back over towards the steer box, because the exhaust is all in the way, but we'll do it. Not really a problem, just something to do. So that'll be the next system after the air system, but for now I tend to like to get the next system coming this way and understand what I'm going to do and what parts I'm going to need. And so I couldn't stand having this and not mocking it up on the truck. And so yeah, love it. It's pretty good looking. So let's move on and do this air system.